Lime fertilization of the seeds, which has backfired. When they experimented with it, it didn't work, and it created algae blooms which got out of control. They are talking about pumping liquid CO2 into the deep sea, but they've got too many fissures down there to keep it permanently in one place. So I was amazed because they had put genetically engineered crops into part of what they were promoting. Now, Bill Gates is a part owner of Monsanto, and Blackwater, partially. And one of the things that he can benefit from is genetically modified seeds and crops. So we have a whole host of things that they're suggesting for our future, not just one thing. Now, David Keith has spoken. He was formerly a professor at Calgary University, and I've always heard he's a climate scientist. He's a climate scientist. And when all of a sudden I looked up what he does for Calgary University on his website, I found that his degree was in energy and petroleum. And guess who was backing him was Shell Oil. If you realize that if we artificially warm the Arctic and Alaska, which is now happening, using water vapor as one of the deliberate methods, we would be able to go in and exploit the natural resources there. CNN is talking about this, everyone is talking about this, that Russia and other countries now are starting, and us and our military, are beginning to talk about, in other words, fighting over these natural resources. Our Navy's heading up there. If you hear anyone talking about, well, we need to reverse global warming because we need it to cool the earth, what happens when that new Shell oil rig that's going to be put in to drill in the deep sea freezes over because we've allowed that area to get cold again? Other companies, Exxon, signed a huge $500 billion drilling contract with Russia in the Arctic area just this past month. $500 billion. The Russian company, the Russian oil company, now has access to drilling and oil in the Gulf of Mexico. That was part of the deal. So you have to understand that there's more here that meets the eye. And I wrote about it in the Arctic Alaska section of the website. Solar radiation management. David Keith has been talking about, and other these so-called guys that are promoting geoengineering, and what they're talking about at this particular juncture in time is they're talking about and discussing using water vapor jets, and they're doing some experiments now, using small jets and using water vapor, and they take aluminum oxide gas and they release it into a slow water vapor flow, and it produces aluminum oxide particles in the atmosphere. Now, they never tell you that water vapor is a greenhouse gas. It's like a subject that's taboo. Nobody ever talks about this. So now they're talking about using water vapor, putting up particles and chemicals, and what it's going to do is supposedly is cool the earth. But they tell you it's very, very risky. So aluminum oxide, for example, is found in shuttle exhaust and rocket exhaust and missile exhaust. So the U.S. Navy put up an aluminum oxide dust cloud over the eastern seaboard on September 19, 2009. They already are experimenting. Trimethyl aluminum is being used in experiments this month. There was 5 rockets that put up canisters filled with trimethyl aluminum to do atmospheric experiments. Everyone is taking a shot at putting different things into the atmosphere. Salt. Bill Gates is going to be funding salt going up into the clouds, these man-made clouds, in order to form particulates to make the clouds whiter and brighter. My thought process here is, if you put salt in clouds as particulates, what's going to happen when they rain out over your fresh water sources? on your soils. Salt makes cropland unproductive. Salt impacts marine mammals. It's going to impact your water supply. So we're going to whiten clouds without considering the effects of this. You haven't heard about this because the major news media usually only does a little promotion piece interviewing only those people that are promoting it. They don't talk about the negative consequences. And the Bipartisan Policy Center just did a report on October 4th last year. And what they said is, well, the U.S. government should fund it. And we're going to start working toward getting this in the funding budget so that we can fund geoengineering. I kid you not. The reports are online. So when you go, there's many types of dispersion methods. You've got jets and small planes, rockets, drones, chemicals, particles of gases and salts can all be injected into the atmosphere with any and all of these methods. And they're even talking about spraying water into the atmosphere, which would create more water vapor. That's another greenhouse gas. So we're looking at risk here, and there's lots and lots of risk. And I want all of you to know that are you willing to live within the experiment is my question. Are you willing to allow them to experiment on you, your children, your family, your crops, anything that's going on outdoors, your trees, everything that benefits us, because the earth provides food, water, all kinds of things. If we contaminate it, and if we reduce the amount of sunlight that's reaching the earth, this is going to have serious consequences. Some of them are, they talk about in an AAAS seminar that was held on geoengineering in 2010, David Keith talked about, well, there will be haves and have-nots. Some people will have droughts from these programs. Some people will not. Just who decides who benefits? And they said, well, we'll just have this global group and they'll decide who benefits and who gets and who doesn't. I object to this. And most people don't know that it's even happening. But this is a discussion that's going on at this time. I've listed some climate remediation. They call geoengineering or climate remediation. And they use the word climate remediation because people were beginning to have a negative attitude about geoengineering as they found out more about it. So they decided, well, we'll kind of mask the terminology and we'll put it into something that sounds better. And so they decided on climate remediation. But you're going to have increasing problems from air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, and these, I just listed a few. And if you have lack of direct sunlight, you're going to have increases in molds, mildews, viruses, and flu-like symptoms. And there's a man by the name of Gil Smolin. He was on KGO radio several years ago when I was driving down the freeway being interviewed by Ron Owens. And it was during the time of the flu epidemics and pandemics when that was making the news. And so Ron Owens asked him in no uncertain terms, he said, well, what would stop a flu epidemic or a pandemic? And the answer was, would anyone care to take a guess? Direct sunlight. It kills molds, mildews, fungus. And if you have a pandemic, do you ever notice that people aren't sick as much in the summertime? Because they have more sunlight. And those people that live in the cold and the damp and the moist and all of this tend to get sick. Well, part of the reason for that is that when you have direct sunlight, it acts as a disinfectant. So when you have scientists and professors and others promoting what's going on, you have to realize that there's going to be more consequences than you may be aware of.